We are live and welcome everybody from Remote Work Europe. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this webinar with Catherine Rodriguez from Entre Tramites because we get so many questions about visas. We get them in the Remote Work Spain group, we get them in the other groups about coming to Spain. And also I see these questions all over the internet, all over social media. It has become really confusing with some visas being introduced, some visas being modified, some visas all of a sudden being discontinued or announced that they're about to be discontinued. So I don't like giving immigration advice on social media. I'm not qualified to do it. So in this situation, what I like to do is get somebody who does know what they're doing to come and answer all these questions. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Catherine Rodriguez, and she's going to explain everything we need to know about visa possibilities for Spain.
Thank you for having me, Maya. It's always great to be here with you and to talk with your community. Because, yeah, as you said, immigration definitely needs something specialized, especially when things like this happen. Like suddenly, is the golden visa is going to happen? It's going to, how long? We'll talk about that. Sadly, I won't give you all the answers to the golden visa because the legislators still don't know how all the answers. But we are in contact with Maya, so as soon as we have more information, we will definitely give them to you. But in between, let's talk about the visas that are actually still active and the options that we have. So let's start with your non-profited residency. With the non-profited residency, I want to be very, very clear on this because it's something that people used to use as a form of a digital nomad visa and sometimes still use. This non-profit residence is exactly for that, non-profit residency. Meaning it does not allow you to work in Spain while you're in Spain. It doesn't matter if the company is in Spain, if the company is outside of Spain. The company, to be honest, it can be on the moon for all that Spain cares. You're not allowed to work.
That would be good remote working company on the moon. So this is the one that's often called the non-lucrative visa, isn't it?
Exactly. The non-lucrative visa, non-profit visa. Please don't use this to work, especially now with the digital nomad visa. There has been a bigger, more crackdown on the part of the tributary agency because this used to be okay in their eyes. Well, there was not an option, but now we have an option. We need to use this one. So we need to use the digital nomad visa. But what happens if you're retired? Then in that case, you can still have this visa. The non-lucrative visa is great for people who are retired. It's great for people who are not going to be living here, who are going to be living here for some time, but not working because of whatever reason and just want to stay. So as long as you have the sufficient income, you can use this. It is great. What are the requirements? First, not to be a citizen of the European Union, not be irregular in the Spanish territory, have a lack of a criminal record, not have a bad entry into the Schengen territory, and is into the territory, not only into Spain. The sufficient financial means is 400% of the IPREM. People always ask me what the IPREM is. It's basically a number that the Spanish government decides every year. That is what the average people need to survive on a month. Right now, things being how they are, we don't have an exact number. So we're using 650 just to make sure because the government has not given out the official number. And the number for last year was 600. So Entre Tramites has taken into consideration how it usually goes up. We have upped it up a little bit just to make sure that when the official number is out, you are still in that number, you're still right. So right now for a full year of residency is 31,200. Okay. Have private health insurance. It's very important to have a private health insurance that has no co-payments and no waiting periods, and a medical certificate that states specifically that you don't have any public health repercussions in accordance with the provisions of the International Health Regulation. This is what it has to say. If you want it, you can screenshot it, you can copy it, and send it directly to your doctor because it doesn't have to be a medical professional in Spain, and have them write exactly that because that is all we need from that. And that is all we're going to need. And whenever I mention that we need a medical certificate, that is exactly what we're going to need. Let's talk about the documentations that we are going to need. We're going to need a national visa application. Remember that for the visa, you have to apply from the consulate, unless for whatever reason you're already in Spain with another residency. In that case, it would be a modification. You have to have the application of the EX01 form. This must indicate the province that you're going to live in Spain. Don't worry if you don't have an address, because I know that sometimes when you do this online, it tells you that you have to have an address in Spain. You don't have to have an address in Spain yet. All that you have to, a permanent one, all you have to have is one for a time being that they know that they can contact you. That could be a hotel, an Airbnb. So it doesn't have to be your permanent residency. You will inform them of your permanent residency later on. Now, what else do we need to do? And Spain does love its administrative taxes. This is one of them, the administrative fee, the 790 form, the 052, and you're going to have to pay also a consular one. So for this one, there's two taxes that you have to pay. The original deposit of the bank, remember, this is a non-lucrative visa. So we cannot have contracts. We have to have bank statements that says that you've had that in savings or that you have a pension, but nothing that you are actively working. Your passport has to have a validity, a minimum of 1 year. For the consulate, you're going to have to bring in the original and the copy. Most consulates right now don't keep the original, but some consulates do. You have to check that directly with the consulate and then ask them if there's any other options in case you want to keep the original. And the certificate of judicial record that states that you don't have a criminal record. Very important. If you've been a resident in the UK or in the United States for the past 5 years for this visa, for others it will be 2, but for this one, for the past 5 years, the criminal records that you need are the ACRA for the UK and the FBI for the United States. They don't allow any others than those two. For any other country, they don't have a preference. The documentation providing your health insurance, this is where it has to say no co-payments, no waiting periods, the medical certificate, which you already know what it has to say, and the documentation providing that you have the means to financially support yourself for all that time. So in case of this visa, if you're applying for it from the consulate, you only have to prove 1 year. If for whatever reason you can apply for it from here in Spain, if you prove 2 years, it may be that they give you 2 years directly. The same thing will happen with the renovations. But for that, you also have to prove that you have the means for those 2 years. And let's go to the new kid on the road who's still the new kid on the road, the digital nomad visa. This is visa was the answer to Spain to, we have people with non-lucrative visas who are working but are not working in Spain. How can we get tributos out of them, or impuestos, how it's called here? So in came the digital nomad visa. It came in fast and it came with a lot of issues, sadly, at the beginning. It was also in response to the pandemic. And it was a bad version at the beginning of the Portuguese one. Thankfully, the kinks are out. It is still not as simple as we wish. That's why we have options for you. But if you can meet the requirements, those are the requirements. There's no longer people going blind on it. The requirements are now very clear by the UG of what we need. What are the benefits of this one? It's work flexibility, access to the Spanish quality of life, connection with an international community, and you get to explore and enjoy Spain. And I always say here, if you're working remotely from Spain, do explore and enjoy Spain, because it has great beaches, it has great mountains, it has a lot of food that is, if you stay in one place, you won't get to enjoy, because you can get on Andalusia and go hear the music. Then you come to Asturias and you have el cachopo, which is a food. So always do enjoy it. Go out and enjoy. Now, who can benefit from these visas? We have two types. In this visa, we have two types of doing it. First is employed workers and those self-employed workers. Okay. Employed workers, what does that mean? You work directly for the company abroad. Then that company is authorizing you to work remotely. But it's not that you have a contract with them, a contract worker with them. Is that that company, if it's in the, for example, in the United States, they pay your social security directly. They everything. You have a normal employment contract with the company. What are the drawbacks of that? The company will need to register in Spain, and this is usually where most people lose their company. They no longer want to help. And the companies have to register here in Spain. They don't have to register for tax purposes. They just have to register for social security purposes. But this is a process that it has means the company will have to have a white NIE for the owner of the company, or owners, is there more than one. They will have to have a NIF for the company, and they will have to register the company here in the social security. This is all before you start applying for the visa. Then you apply for the visa, and I'll talk about the requirements of that specifically later on. Then we have the self-employed workers. These are people who can maybe work just for one company, but as a contract worker. So they are the ones that take care of their own social security and everything, or maybe work for various companies. First thing, you must have at least one contract with another company. It has to be another company. It just can't be loose clients that don't have their own company. At least one. If you can give me one contract with one company, we're fine. Second thing with this, you cannot obtain more than 20% of your total income from Spanish companies. So while you can do business with Spanish companies while here in Spain, it can never exceed more than 20%. So this is if you're thinking, let me do the digital nomad visa for to then move to a normal visa. If when I have the 20, when I'm gonna go over the 20%, it is an option, but you have to make sure that while you're in the digital nomad visa, you only have that 20% or less of your income from Spain. Let's go for the requirements. We're going to go first with the employed workers. Remember that this is after your company has registered here for the social security purposes. The first thing that most companies ask us is, do I have to pay taxes from my company wealth? No, you don't, but you do have to have a bank account here in Spain, and you have to pay the social security system here in Spain, which let's just say is not the cheapest out there. So take that into consideration when you go to talk to your employers. Okay, so you need the application form, the fee, which is $73.26. The company that is sponsoring you, for lack of a better term, must have been operational for 1 year. You have to prove that you've been in a relationship with that company for 3 months. The employment contract has to be of at least 1 year. It is better if it's just an open-ended contract. You have to have a letter from the company stating that you can work remotely. If it specifically could say from Spain, the best. And proof of professional competence. We have 2 ways of doing this. The best way to do it is to be a graduate or a postgraduate from a prestigious university. What does that mean for Spain? Basically, that the university is legal in your country. So you don't have to do it from Harvard or New York. You can graduate from the University of Puerto Rico, for example, which was my alma mater. Not as prestigious, but still a very good university. If you don't have a graduate or a postgraduate, you can have 3 years of experience. But for that, we need, it doesn't have to be the last 3 years, but we definitely need for those 3 years to have contracts from that companies, and that contracts that you have provide what your work was. Because remember, this will be covering the graduate or the postgraduate. So they need to be sure that you have that company. What else do we need? We need a criminal record certificate. Is one for the last 2 years that you've been of the country that you've been residing in. Again, if you've been in the United States, FBI, UK, ACRO. Proof agreement with the Social Security or registering into Spain. Now, what is the agreement with the Social Certificate? This, some people may have heard as the A1 if you're from European Union or the UK, or the E1 if you're from the United States. This is a certificate of coverage. Some countries, including the United States, do have agreements that basically the Social Security will be paid in the United States or in the UK on the country of origin, and you don't have to register your company here in Spain. Now, They issue with the certificate of coverage and disagreements. They were not made for the digital nomad visa. These were made a long time before the digital nomad visa, meaning that all certificate of coverage do not cover this type of situation. For example, right now, the E1 with the United States. We are having trouble with getting the form the correct way. That means that the company is going to have to register. If you're from the UK, you have the A1 that has been proven track record already. So your company would not need to register here in Spain. You can just get the A1 from the UK. But it takes a long time. The UK is being very slowly in this. It's taking around 16 weeks. So do take that into consideration when you're making your timeline. The sufficient resources. For the first applicant, meaning the principal, the person who's going to work here, is 200% of the same. This is another, because sometimes it's a IPREM, sometimes it's the SMI. This means salario mínimo interprofesional, or basically the least amount that a company can pay you. It's also a number that the government gives every year. For this year, it has already been given, so we know the exact amount. It's 200% of this. So for the first applicant, you're going to need 300,000. For the second person who's going to come with you, you're going to need 75%. So add that 11,340. And then for each family member after that, you can add 3,780. Who can come with you? Your spouse, your legal registered spouse, legal registered, unless you have a child together. Children under 18, children over 18 that you can prove that are still tied to you economically, meaning that they're studying, things like that. If they have work, it's going to be more difficult to get them tied to you. And you can bring your parents if they are also tied to you. It's difficult to prove economic ties to them, and you have to prove it for 2 years. It's easier if they are 75 years or older. Okay. You need medical insurance that covers all of Spain. So this is where the Social Security comes in. So you don't need private medical insurance. We still recommend, in some cases, having private medical insurance, but you can shop around after you have the visa for that. But it does make living in Spain sometimes easier with access to healthcare, because while Spanish healthcare, it is very, very good, it is also sometimes slow. So being able to have private health insurance sometimes help with that part of it. And the last, not be irregular in Spain. For this, you can apply it from Spain, but I need you to have either a residency already in Spain or be regular here in your 90 days tourist visa. You have to be on those 90 days. Also, very important for the digital nomad visa, was for employed and not employed. If you're here in Spain as a non-lucrative worker, this is the time to start changing. The UG is still being lenient on this, and it's still letting you prove that you've been here for the past 3 months and that you've been with the non-lucrative, and they're still applying it. At some point, this will change, and the tributary agency is already cracking down on those people. So you remember you will have to pay back taxes, plus also pay fines. It is never a fun thing. Okay, now self-employed workers. You have the application form, again, the administrative fee. Remember that the income that you receive from Spain or Spanish companies must not be more than 20%. Independent professional relationship for clients of at least 3 months. We're going to need to prove relationship with the clients abroad. That is that the clients are abroad. So that is all the certificate of good standing or the certificate of incorporation. And again, that company must succeed for at least 1 year. If you have more than one company, we can use all of them if you wish, but we only need one company, and then the rest we can prove the income. Again, proof of professional competence, which is the 3 years, or the postgraduate or graduate, the criminal record certificate, which again, UK is the ACRO, United States is the FBI one. Then you're going to need a letter that you're going to register as self-employed once the registration has been approved. So this is the RETA. This is where I always send you to one of my colleagues, Louis Williams or Gabriela, because RETA is basically what you pay as an autonomous. The first year you have, I think it's 86 euros that you pay monthly. And then after that, you pay more depending on your income. So it's very important to always talk with someone who is knowledgeable about financial advisors, especially if you're going to do this for the first few years, because you can make a lot of little mistakes that end up adding up to you owing more money, or that more money that should be given back to you is not getting back to you. So we're going to have links at the end of this for free consultations. It is going to be from the immigration side, but you can also have links in our website to the financial advisor sites. And I think Maya has had some before in her page. It is very important. Remember, this is going to be a new system for you for the first few years. So it's better to go with someone who knows. The resources are going to be the same. Again, the same thing with the medical insurance, and you cannot be irregular here in Spain. Okay. The requirements to apply for the digital nomad visa, 3 years, 3 months. This is basically all the same. So we can now. Here is our option to the digital nomad visa that is not conventional, but is completely, thankfully, legal. And we have this option to work with if the company does not want to register here in Spain. And is that another company hires you as a highly qualified worker. You're still going to be able to work with your original company. So how is this? One of the drawbacks is that you're going to need an EOR. This is an employer of record with a company that works in Spain. We have a partner that we work with. They are your employers of record. They contract you. You have a contract with them. You have a salary with them. But your company will have to hire them so that then they can pass them off to you. Now, for this, you don't need 3 months to be 3 months with this company, because it is a highly professional visa, meaning that you can, the second you have that contract with them, we can apply for this visa. You are going to be working for your own company still, but you're going to be working for your company through this employer of record. So it's very expensive. They do charge for the service. It's usually around 500 euros that you're going to need to be charged, and your salaries will have a different minimum. Your salary have to be around 40,000 or 50,000 a year, depending on what you're going to be contracted as. If you're going to be contracted as a high-level executive, it's going to be 50,000 euros. Any other professional, highly qualified, is going to be 40,000. The benefits of this: you can still work for the original company. You can apply for Beckham's Law, which is a very big draw, especially for people who have higher incomes. You don't need to have a contract with the the employer of record, for more than 3 months previous to the visa application. So let's say you make the contract today, you have all the documents ready, they send me all the documents on their part, tomorrow we can send out the visa. We don't have to wait 3 months for you to have been employed with them. This is a way for you to get it to Spain, for you to apply to be able to work for Spain and still work for your original company. But it does come with some drawbacks, as the extra expense that you have. If you want to go this route, please use the links at the end of it for the free consultation with one of my legal aides. They know how this works already, and they can explain in more detail the benefits and the route that you have to take. Now let's talk about the visa and residency for entrepreneurs. Some people know this one as the ENISA visa. The ENISA visa is for people who want to open a company here. It is, but it has to be a company that is basically has everything is new going to be about this company in terms of the product. It's going to have to be an innovative product. It has to be something that you have basically no competition here in Spain. You have to be able to open jobs. It is a company that has to be created for growth. Because of this, it is also a company that the most important requirement is the certificate of ENISA. There is no way to get around this. You need the certificate of ENISA, and the certificate of ENISA can be very, very hard to get. They are cracking down of this. The visa basically has to be something completely new. So when I say completely new, I don't mean, I'm going to use AI. I mean, you're going to create an AI basically that has not been created before. We have options to the visa residence as an entrepreneur, because some people think that this is the only way to open a company here in Spain. It's not. There are easier ways to do this. It's just more time consuming. But yeah, if make sure that you add value to the Spanish economy of innovation and investment, and definitely innovation is the key that they're looking for. You can prove to them that you're going to make value for the Spanish economy, and it's not also innovative, they will deny it. And if the visa certificate is the certificate from Indonesia is denied, the visa will be denied. So getting that all of the way, let's imagine you actually can get a certificate, which, first of all, congratulations to you. It is very hard to get. I would frame it somewhere. So the application must not be from a country belonging to the European Union, must be over 18, have no criminal record, cannot be irregular here in Spain, have social security, whether it's public or private in this case, which is private, it has to have full coverage in Spain, and must have sufficient economic funds. It must have sufficient economic funds so that you and your family can live here for at least 3 years, plus sufficient economic funds to start moving the process forward. There's also something that is that the UG is going to crack down soon on, and not only the UG is the immigration, is that these companies were actually created. Because sometimes people say, "Oh, I have 3 years to create the company. I'll just take this low," and it was 1, 2 years, 3 years come in, and nothing has been done on this visa. The UG, remember, can verify that you meet the requirements for the visa at any point, and they will start looking 1 year in, maybe 6 months in, that you have tried to at least open it and that you're actively working on it. Okay, so the documentation that you need, the most important one, that is a certificate. The rest is the form application, again, the administrative fee, and your plan and your passport. The ANISA certificate is free to get, but let's talk a little bit about how you get that ANISA certificate. The first thing that you need to do is you fill out a questionnaire with the ANISA. They ask very, very invasive questions, for lack of a better term, about your job, about your work, about, you have to be very detailed. Detail is probably a better word. You have to be very, very detailed about your product, about your clients, about what you're going to be doing here in Spain. So do not take this lightly. If you can, do it with someone who has had experience before, and someone who can probably, from the plan that you tell them before, can tell you if the NISA is going to be approved or not, because if they have been dealing, just as we have been dealing with this a lot. So we already have an idea, even by you telling us what your company is about. Once you do that, you have to apply for your visa with the UG. If you don't apply for your visa with the UG, NISA will not even look at your application until the UG tells them to look at your application. So you won't know if you have a favorable one before you apply. Sadly, the moment that you know if the NISA has been approved or declined is the moment your visa gets approved or declined, which is another issue that we have before, with the fact that you are applying for this without all the knowledge, and there is no way to get you that knowledge beforehand. So with ANISA, be very careful. Remember, you still have other visas, which I'll talk after the golden visa. Your other visas that you can apply to open your own company here takes longer. You have to do it from the country of origin, but it's more secure right now than the ANISA project. Now, the investor visa, or more commonly known as the golden visa. This has been around the block, but now it's back in the news. So, what is happening right now? This is not the first time this has happened with the golden visa. Before, during Rajoy, they have talked already about taking out the golden visa. What does this mean? It means that they are just going to take that you have three options for the golden visa, the visa, but what they want to take out is the house, that you cannot buy a visa, how they say it, with buying the house. That is the only thing that they're going to be taking out. So you have investments, other type of investments in Spain. You can still use the golden visa. You just probably won't be able to be with a $500,000 house. Is this already in progress? No. We have a few things that need to be done before this. Immigration needs to get a new immigration law that will has been promised for this year. And also they're doing some other things with the arraigos or regularization of people that also has to be done before 2025, before the beginning of 2025. So it may be that this takes a while yet. So right now, this part of the visa is still active. You can still be approved of it, but that also means that we have very little information about what's going to happen with the people who already have the visa. We have some basic ideas about what's going to happen because it has happened before. This is not the first time a visa disappears, and the government doesn't just let those people be without visas. They do have other ways to modify it, to transform it. They give you time to do it. It happened, for example, with Brexit. Suddenly, the people that were here, they didn't have visas. They had time to change it and move to other visas. So this probably is what's going to happen with this. If you're already working here in Spain, you can just probably modify it to a work visa. If you're thinking about buying the house right now, what we recommend, because this process is long, buy the house only if you actually want that house. Don't buy the house for this visa, because we don't know when it's gonna end up. They're gonna end up taking it out, or if they are. Hopefully they're not, but it does look that this time they will be actually taking it out. So if you want the house, still do the house. If we still have time, we will apply for the visa. But if not, you definitely need a plan B to get here. A plan B could be the digital nomad visa. A plan B could be just a normal work visas. There are still options, but only buy the house if you're gonna want the house without the visa. What other investment options do you have? Well, you have public debt. You have to invest 2 million. Share of equities of stakes in a Spanish capital of companies, 1 million. Investments funds, be that closed-end investments funds, venture capital, 1 million. And bank deposits in Spanish financial institutions for 1 million. So the investor visa is still going to be very much alive. You just won't be able to access it through the house. The requirements, other than the house, instead of the house, is going to be its investments, are going to stay the same. The benefits are going to stay the same. It's just that part. The other option that you have that has no minimum is investment in a business project in Spain. They, for this, evaluate the creation of job, the socioeconomic impact and geographical area that will develop, and the significant contribution to science and or technology. As you can see, I have not put an amount on this because there is no amount, but that it also means that it's a little bit left to the person who's reviewing the visa if they see that these requirements are met. So the best thing is to go with the ones that already have the 2 million or the 1 million, because these are already a set of rules that are clear and that you either meet it or you don't. Not just like the creation of jobs, because with the creation of jobs, what do they mean? 1 job, 2 job, 1 million jobs. So it's better to always go with the safest option. Now let's go to temporary residence and work authorizations. These are the visas that we can use instead of the entrepreneurship visa, instead of the digital nomad visa. But these are the visas that are not done by the UG. These are done by immigration. So the first thing that I'm going to say about these visas, they take a long time, and most of the time they have to be done from a country of origin. They take up to 3 to 6 months to get approved, which is why everybody always tries to go for the other visas. But sometimes the safest route is the best route. Temporary residency and work authorization, it allows you to be employed of a company that hires you here in Spain. Again, not be a citizen of the state of the European Union, not be irregular, and lack of criminal record in Spain. The criminal record for this is the 5 years, and I will repeat myself on this again and again. United States, FBI, UK, agro. Always those two. It does take into consideration the national employment situation. What is the national employment situation? There is a list of jobs that the government thinks that are hard to fill. So those don't need a specific approval before that. It is a list that is supposed to be updated every 3 months. Sometimes it gets updated, other times not. Does that mean that if you're not on that list, you cannot apply for this visa? No. It just means that you need the ayuntamiento or the town hall to approve that visa before the visa gets sent out. With this, what you get is an informe of SEPE, which is the public labor department. They will send candidates to the company if they find them. If they don't find them, they will say, hey, we tried, there's nothing that can be done, let this person be hired. If they find candidates, the company then has to actually see if there are candidates that can fill that position or not. And they have to give informed decisions. It's not just they can just say no. If they actually are candidates that don't meet their requirements, then again, the CEPE will say, hey, there are no candidates, let this person be hired. So this is all before the visa. Once you got that, then you start the process of the visa. You do it throughout the consulate, your country of origin. So it's very important. This visa is with your country of origin. You go to the consulate with the documents that you need, which is, again, form, contract. They have to pay you a minimum salary wage for Spain, and they have to meet the financial requirements here in Spain. Usually what that means is that they don't have any standing debt with Social Security or with the Agencia Tributaria. It is a lengthy process. It takes around 3 months, and then you can enter Spain. It is usually takes add 1 month more for the informe of the CEPE, especially depending on the town hall. Places, for example, like Barcelona, Madrid, you have to take into consideration that they see a lot of things. They don't only see immigrants, they have a lot of their own people. This is not specifically for immigrants, so it may be some time to work. So again, you have to plan accordingly. And the visa residency as the self-employed. If you want to open your company in Spain, you're not sure if that visa is going to be approved, this is the way to go. Again, lengthy process, but it's safer. This will allow you to come here as a self-employed, and it will allow you to open your own company here. You need also a favorable decision, but this time it's not going to be from ENISA. It's going to be from ATA or a government-esque agency related to that. Basically, they are just going to look at your plan, and they're going to see if it's viable. So we don't need innovation. We don't need for you to have 3 million euros. We don't need something that's completely new. We just need the plan to be viable. This is where people who just want to open a cafeteria, who just want to open something that, while it's innovative, it still has competition here in Spain. This is where they go. This is the easiest route to coming here into Spain, because that ALTA certificate only looks if it's viable. For a plan to be viable, you have to have a good plan, you have to have the financial income for it, and you have to have the capacity, the professional capacity. So you need copy of all the pages of your passport, the application, residency, and Form 790-52, which is the proof of payment of the administrative fee. Again, since you're doing this from the consulate, you're also going to have an extra TASA fee, which is the consulate TASA fee. Consulate TASA fees, the reason I'm not giving you exact numbers is because they vary by consulate, but it's usually between 100 to 300, also depending on the type of visa that it is. Again, the establishment of the project and the documentation providing of the economic investment. This is if you're not being the only investor. If you're going to have investments, you cannot only do your own savings, for example, you have to have proof of that people who are going to invest. And what are the most important requirements for this business plan? Project description, value of proposition, sales strategy, economic impact, market analysis, economic viability, requirement of investing, and financing. It looks like it's a lot. It is still a lot less than ENISA. And it is information that you already should have if you actually plan a good business plan that can help you move forward with your company and be able to do everything correctly. So my recommendation is you have any doubts about the ENISA, go with this visa. It can save you a lot of headaches, because sadly, ENISA, they want too much innovation right now, and most companies won't be able to fulfill this requirement. Okay, now if you have any questions, I'm just gonna put here. Sorry, but these are our consultation QR codes that I talked to you about. We have a free consultation with one of our specialists, and then also a paid one with one of our immigration specialists.
That's so helpful, Catherine. Thank you. So, if you're not sure and you just want to get some navigation on your overall situation with your tax and your visa and your long range planning, do book the free consultations. But if you know that you need to actually apply for a visa, if this webinar has clarified your roadmap to Spain and you want to get on it straight away, then we recommend that you go straight for the professional support and book the paid consultation, because you'll get going a lot more quickly that way. Now, we have a couple of questions. We had one that came through, which has come up before, I think, about the digital nomad visa, because this is a source of confusion. So I'm going to put it on the screen for you here, actually, Catherine.
Okay, question of employment. We are hearing that if an employer has an office in Spain, the applicant does not qualify. That is correct. The applicant, if there is an office in Spain, even if the headquarters are somewhere else, the applicant does not qualify. What they may qualify is for a transfer. Now, transfer are a little bit tricky because you can only do it for a certain amount of time. But after that time, which again, that time could be 3 years, after that time, you can move on to getting another visa, modify your visa to a normal work visa. For that, Ian, do book a free consultation with our specialist for that specific, because transfers can be done, but they are also tricky, and there has to be. But yes, if you have a headquarters, office, anything in Spain, if that company by any means is registered in Spain, other than for tax purposes, for the social security purposes, you do not qualify for the digital nomad visa.
Okay, so just to be clear, if they're specially registering for Social Security specifically to enable you to apply for the digital nomad visa, that's okay.
Yes.
But if they have a branch here already, you would need to be employed by that branch, and then you should look at a transfer there. Could you then potentially be eligible for Beckham tax?
Yes, you can be eligible for Beckham tax, because Beckham, as long as you, there are some caveats to this with the autonomous one, which is better to look at with Lewis. But as long as you're an employee, you can get Beckham's law. It does not matter what type of visa you have. You can get Beckham's law if you're an employee. It is not tied to a specific type of visa. It is not tied just to the digital nomad visa.
Brilliant. Okay, hopefully that's cleared that up. And I have already dropped the link in the comments to a webinar we did with Louis recently, specifically about the Beckham tax treatment. So if anybody is interested in that, you're curious about it, whether it applies to you or not, we go into a lot of detail there about exactly what to look for. So you'll find the link in the comments or on remoteworkeurope.eu. Now, you won't be surprised, Catherine, that one of the questions we had most in the lead up to this was from people about the golden visa, because it's been so much in the news recently. The biggest question, I think you've already explained that you can't answer, but what about people who are already here? They may have sold up in the UK or wherever and put their life savings into their villa here to meet the income requirement. They're still in their first couple of years and they're really concerned about what the future might hold. Now, I realise you can't speak for UGE or the government, but what kind of reassurances could we just provide those people in summary right now?
Right now, that there is going to be a way to modify it. They usually are very good about this. I can say a lot of things about the Spanish immigration system and everything, but on this, I can also say that they are usually very good, that when they take something away, they give you ways to modify it. This is not the first time this has happened. It happened also with Brexit. It has happened. We have had visas disappear also before, and they allow you to modify it. Now, if you are starting on your visa right now, it may be that you have to modify it for a work visa. It may be that, depending on you, they can let you modify it for a non-lucrative visa. If you're at 5 years or close to 5 years, it may be that you just have to wait a little bit and get your long-term EU residency card, and then you don't have to worry about that. Because also, if you're on the EU long-term residency card, that is going to be a non-issue at this point. But the most important reassurance that we can give them is this is still in its infancy. It usually takes a very long time. Hear me saying this, and then suddenly they're going to decide everything tomorrow. But it usually takes a long time, and they are, while they're not clear from the beginning, they are clear at the end of it, because this is also something that people need to understand. It's a lot of moving parts, and sometimes it's trial and error. It happened with the digital nomad visa. The legislation came out. There are a lot of things that they didn't think about at the beginning, that suddenly lawyers went, oh, but I have a client who has this. What do we do? But it will still be given time to modify it. And it's not that it's going to be that tomorrow you're gonna be without your visa. It takes time. They will give you time, and they will give you options.
And there will be people like Catherine and the team at Entre Tramites to support you as those options roll out. I think it's a really good thing to remember that Spain does not do law quickly. Those of us who remember how long it took for the digital nomad visa, long promised, by the time it finally rolled out, half the world already had one. But it did mean that Spain could look at what was working and see what was happening. The only examples we've had of legislation being done really quickly was things like during the state of alarm, and those were full of holes. So, it is better that they take their time and they sort this one out, and we will keep you updated with whatever advice we receive. I've got a different question up here for you from Salvador.
Okay, I have lived in 4.5 years within the European Union. I recently moved to Germany. How can I permanently reside in Spain? I'm still working for Germany for a company, but remote, but I'm not sure if the contract will be permanent. What is the best recommendation? Okay, so we would have to look at a few things, Salvador. First, what type of visa you would have. If you by any chance happen to have a permanent residency visa, which most countries ask for 5 years, so I'm guessing not. We cannot switch you for that. The best thing is to get a permanent residency in Spain with a digital nomad visa, because if the company is in Germany, you can do that, but you're gonna need a residency visa to work here in Spain. You cannot work with the residency in Barcelona. That's also a misconception some people had, that if I have a residency somewhere else in Europe, I can work from Spain. That is not like that. You can unchange it. Okay, you have a white qualified worker. Okay, in this case, we can, depending on the contract, it can be moved to a high qualified worker within the European Union. Then that would like to work from here, or a digital nomad visa. With a digital nomad visa, Germany could get you the A1, meaning there's usually not a problem with Social Security, because the A1 is also for countries inside of the European Union. So if you get the A1, you don't need to register the company here. After that, if you plan to live here in Spain, you have to be careful about not spending more than 3 months a year or 10 months in total of the next 5 years outside of Spain, and you can get a permanent residency card. But if you don't, since you already don't have a permanent residency card from the European Union, we cannot switch you to that one. So you're gonna have to wait a little bit to get the permanent residency card, but there are definitely options with you're highly qualified.
Great. Okay, and we've got another question about EORs.
Okay, are EORs in Spain effectively umbrella companies? If you pay through an EOR, are you still employed of your company in the UK, where you still remain employed and your company will receive all the benefits? Okay, employer of records are not an umbrella company. Employer of records are people who employ the people, so that would be in fact your employer, and they just like sell your job or yes,
Your services, I
your
guess.
services,
Yeah.
your services to that company. So in this case, your employer will be the Spanish company. So depending on how it works with the legislation, but from how I know the Spanish legislation will be, you will lose all the benefits of health insurance, pension, etc. You will get them through the EOR because you still are employed here in Spain. So you'll will have sick pay. You'll have sick pay. You'll have salary. You'll have into the pension. You'll have this self-insurance, but it will be through the EOR and not through your original company. If there is an agreement that can come between you personally and the company, it can be done. And Spain there does not, because these are private agreements. But everything you are going to be getting that through the Spanish company, not through the UK, in this case, company.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point about, because it's not always clear how employers of record work, but they are your employer. So that's the reason they exist, is so that you can access those local benefits and employment conditions, which are in many cases more generous than in the UK. So that's why it's expensive and onerous for overseas hires to use them. But it's a great result for the people whose employers want them enough that they will subscribe to an EOR in Spain. We do have an article about EORs in Spain, which I will drop into the comments when I find it after this webinar. We had another question came through indirectly about, this is going back to the self-employment visa now, and about the business plan that's required. You mentioned that it's a lot, it's like a lower standard of proof and documentation than the ANISA visa, but are there any services? Is it something that Entre Tramites can help with to help people develop their business plan? I could help them if it was in English, but I wouldn't dare go near it in Spanish. So can you help with that, or do you recommend any other service?
No, we do actually have Natalia Correas is in charge of that area. So we do create the plan with input for you, because you are the end are the person who knows specifically what your company is and what your company wants to be. But we do help you make sure that everything that you need is in there. Advice on how to change something to make it more palpable for Spain, and also in getting you that favorable review with the ATA. So that is a service that we offer. If you're doing that and also the visa services with us, we work together with Natalia and her group to make sure that everything is covered. But yeah, they've had very much success with the ATA favorable review, and then giving us a very good leg up into the visa process of it.
Brilliant. And I think there, just going back to the comments, there clearly is confusion about EORs. I've dropped in the link to an article I wrote literally about a year and a half ago, but nothing's really changed in the background. But what I think we might do is try and get somebody from remote.com or another of the big EORs to just come and give us an overview, because it's really important that we provide a clear picture of the whole matrix of possible solutions. Visas are an important part of it, but then there are still decisions to be made about the right employment structure. So I think if we haven't got any more questions, we will, we've got one more question come through. Let me just pop that up under the wire before I close this off, from Catherine.
I have a contingency agency in the UK and continue to say business in Spanish, providing service clients to the UK, Spain, and worldwide. Should I apply for a digital nomad visa or a self-employed visa? Time is of the essence. Husband is working in the UK company and working remotely in Spain. Okay. The tricky part about this is the fact that you provide services to Spain. So we would have to see if you're under that 20%. If you're over that 20%, you cannot apply for the digital nomad visa. You would have to get a self-employed visa, which it could take you, as I said, 2 to 3 months. Your husband, you say, is working for a UK company and working remotely already in Spain. So it can also be that you can be tied, if your husband has a visa already here, that you can be tied to his visa as a family member. And then you don't have, because the digital nomad visa, remember, it is 20% for the digital nomad visa, which is the principal. If family members are tied to it, they come already with a work permit. That is not the 20%. So you can be tied to that one. You still have to pay taxes here, everything else, whether you work in or out, but you're not tied to the 20%. So Catherine,
that's really good. Yeah, that's going to be the route then, isn't it, to get the working. So the husband is wanting to work remotely in Spain. So yeah, probably if he can secure that and get whatever visa goes with that, and then you come as the spouse,
exactly,
hopefully you can get the working visa. If not, the digital nomad visa might be an option, because I work in content. I've tried to work with Spanish clients, given the price differences and the language and cultural differences, and simply the demand for English language content globally. The chances of you getting anywhere near that 20% threshold, I wouldn't think that's a big risk if you've got existing, unless you have loads of Spanish clients already and you can work multilingually and cross-culturally. Probably won't be an issue. So you could look at the digital nomad visa in that event. So great, that was an interesting question to wrap up on. I don't think we've got any more in the queue, but if anybody else comes through, I think we have managed to get this live stream working in the Remote Work Spain page, but it hasn't let any comments through. They've done something really weird and horrible to the API that used to let us stream there. So I think people have been able to see our slides but not comment. So well done to everybody who pre-registered for this and was able to get comments in as questions. But we will try and look at any that pop up in the Facebook thread afterwards, because I know there might be comments there. We just can't see them here. And I've only got one pair of eyes. And unfortunately, Meta won't let us put them all on the screen together any longer for some reason. Please write to Mark Zuckerberg and complain if you're not happy with that. In the meantime, we'll keep things on our website, remoteworkeurope.eu, because that's the best place that we have control over our content then, and we can invite fantastic experts like Catherine to join us and share their expertise with us. We'll put all the links there as well, either to book a direct consultation if you know that you need to apply for a visa, or to book an exploratory discovery call. If you're not sure what your next moves are, then you can talk to a generalist at Intertremitis, which they'll do on a complimentary basis because you're part of the Remote Work Europe community. So thanks everyone for listening, for watching, for joining in the comments, and for sharing your ideas. And thank you very much, Catherine, for joining us today. It's been really interesting.
Thank you for the space, Maya. It's always a pleasure talking with you and being able to communicate with your community.